I am thinking of breaking up with my boyfriend after meeting his family. I can't tell if I'm being overdramatic. My wife and I have been married for 7 years, and while our relationship has had its ups and downs, we've always strived to support each other. We share many interests, from hiking and cooking to binge-watching TV shows. However, there is one area where we often find ourselves at odds. TV shows that contain sexual or nudity scenes. Our relationship began with an understanding and mutual respect for each other's boundaries. I'm not a huge TV consumer, so avoiding certain shows never seemed like a big deal to me. My wife, on the other hand, has a complicated history with such content. In her previous relationship, she was sexually cheated on, an experience that left deep emotional scars. As a result, she is extremely sensitive to any content that includes attractive or hot female bodies, and she feels a need to ensure I avoid these triggers. We usually try to avoid shows that might contain sexual or nudity scenes. We check reviews, look up parental guides, and even rely on recommendations from friends who know our preferences. This system worked well for a while, but recently, an incident with the show 3 Body Problems on Netflix put our approach to the test. It started innocently enough. We were both intrigued by the premise of 3 Body Problems and decided to give it a try. We didn't anticipate any issues, as the show was primarily marketed as a science fiction thriller. However, as we watched, an unexpected scene featuring female nudity caught us both off guard. I fumbled for the remote, trying to turn it off, but my wife was already visibly upset. Her reaction was immediate and intense. She got extremely angry at me for not turning the show off quickly enough. I tried to explain that I was caught off guard and didn't expect the scene, but my words did little to calm her down. She felt betrayed and hurt, as if I had willingly exposed her to something she was trying so hard to avoid. This incident wasn't isolated. It highlighted a recurring issue in our relationship and brought to the surface the unresolved trauma she carries from her past. While I'm personally fine with avoiding certain shows to make her feel comfortable, a small part of me also feels like I may be missing out on some really good shows like Game of Thrones, which are known for their compelling storylines despite their mature content. The incident with 3 Body Problems made it clear that we needed to address this issue more effectively. I wanted to support my wife and respect her boundaries, but I also needed to find a way for us to enjoy TV together without constant fear of triggering her discomfort. This led me to question whether we could find a compromise or if this was something I needed to accept for the rest of our lives. As the conflict continued to simmer, I turned to an online forum for advice. The overwhelming response was that while my wife's past trauma should be respected, the current dynamic was unhealthy. Many suggested exploring therapy to help her cope with these triggers and to improve our communication and understanding. This idea resonated with me, and I realized that seeking professional help might be the best way forward for both of us. My wife's past trauma is rooted in a deeply painful experience from her previous relationship. Before we met, she was involved with someone who betrayed her trust in the most intimate way. Her ex-partner cheated on her multiple times, and the infidelity often involved other women who were physically attractive, leading my wife to feel inadequate and deeply hurt. This betrayal shattered her self-esteem and left her with a lingering sense of insecurity around sexual and physical attractiveness. The scars from that relationship ran deep. My wife confided in me about the emotional turmoil she endured, the feelings of worthlessness, and the anxiety that followed her long after the relationship ended. She worked hard to rebuild her self-confidence, but certain triggers still remained. One of the most significant triggers is seeing other women in sexual or nudity scenes on television. These scenes remind her of the betrayal and reignite feelings of insecurity and mistrust. In our relationship, my wife's reactions to sexual content on TV have been profound. Even a brief glimpse of nudity or a sexually suggestive scene can cause her significant distress. She becomes visibly upset, her anxiety levels spike, and she often needs reassurance that I'm not comparing her to the women on screen. Her immediate reaction is to make me look away or turn off the show, fearing that I might find these women more attractive than her. Understanding her triggers and wanting to support her, I've adapted to these needs. From the beginning of our relationship, we established a practice of carefully selecting the TV shows and movies we watch together. We avoid shows that are known for their explicit content. Instead, we focus on genres like comedy, drama, and documentaries, which are less likely to contain scenes that might upset her. Before starting a new series or movie, we do our due diligence. We read reviews, check parental guides, and sometimes even ask friends for their opinions on the content. This process has helped us avoid many potential triggers, and for the most part, it has worked well. However, there have been a few slip-ups, like the incident with 3 Body Problems, where we were caught off guard by unexpected content. Despite our precautions, my wife's anxiety about sexual content can still make TV watching a tense experience. For example, when a character on a show starts flirting or a scene takes a suggestive turn, she becomes visibly tense, ready to shield her eyes or change the channel. Her anxiety often makes it hard for us to relax and enjoy the show, as I'm also on edge, trying to anticipate and avoid anything that might upset her. This vigilance means we miss out on many popular shows known for their rich storylines and cultural impact. Shows like Game of Thrones, Westworld, and even some critically acclaimed films are off the table because of their explicit content. While I'm not a huge TV consumer, I sometimes feel a sense of loss, knowing that we're bypassing some exceptional storytelling and cultural phenomena. Our usual approach to selecting TV shows is quite systematic. We rely heavily on online resources like IMDb's Parental Guide, which provides detailed content warnings for each episode. We also use streaming services that offer the option to skip certain scenes, although this feature isn't always available. Additionally, we sometimes preview episodes separately before deciding to watch them together, ensuring there are no unexpected surprises. Despite these measures, the fear of triggering my wife's discomfort looms large. Every new show or movie feels like a gamble, and even with all our precautions, the risk of encountering an upsetting scene remains. This constant vigilance has taken a toll on both of us, creating an underlying tension in an activity that should be relaxing and enjoyable. The incident with 3 body problems was a stark reminder of the fragility of our current approach. My wife's immediate anger and my subsequent guilt highlighted the unresolved nature of this issue. It became clear that simply avoiding certain content wasn't a sustainable solution. We needed to address the root of the problem and find a way to move forward that would allow both of us to enjoy our time together without constant anxiety. The incident with 3 body problems began like any other evening. We had heard positive things about the show, and its science fiction premise intrigued both of us. We settled on the couch, eager to dive into a new series. We didn't anticipate any issues, as the show was primarily marketed as a science fiction thriller. As the first episode unfolded, we were both captivated by the intricate plot and stunning visuals. However, about halfway through the episode, an unexpected scene featuring female nudity caught us off guard. I fumbled for the remote, trying to turn it off, but my wife was already visibly upset. Her reaction was immediate and intense. She turned to me, her eyes filled with a mix of anger and hurt. "Why didn't you turn it off sooner?" she demanded, her voice shaking. In that moment, a wave of emotions hit me. I felt a rush of guilt for not reacting quickly enough, frustration at the unexpected scene, and a deep concern for my wife's distress. "I'm sorry, I didn't expect that," I stammered, fumbling with the remote to pause the show. I was caught off guard. Her anger didn't subside. "You know how I feel about these scenes, how could you just sit there?" she cried. The pain in her voice was palpable, and it tore at my heart. I understood why she was upset, but I felt helpless in the face of her intense reaction. We turned off the TV, but the room was still charged with tension. My wife retreated to the bedroom, leaving me alone on the couch, grappling with a mix of guilt and confusion. I wanted to support her, but I also felt frustrated that a seemingly harmless activity had turned into a source of conflict. After giving her some time to cool down, I went to the bedroom, finding her sitting on the edge of the bed, tears streaming down her face. I sat down beside her, reaching out to hold her hand. "I'm really sorry," I said softly. "I didn't mean to hurt you." She pulled her hand away, her face a mix of anger and sadness. "It's not just about tonight," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's about feeling like I can't trust you to protect me from these things. It's about you not understanding how much it affects me." Her words stung, but I knew she was right. I had underestimated the depth of her trauma and how these triggers impacted her. "I do understand," I said, struggling to find the right words. "I know it's hard for you, and I want to do better. Can we talk about how we can handle this better in the future?" We sat in silence for a few moments, both of us trying to gather our thoughts. Finally she spoke. "I just need you to be more aware," she said. "When we watch something new, you need to be ready to turn it off if something happens. I can't always be the one to notice it first." I nodded, understanding her need for reassurance and protection. "I can do that," I agreed. "We can also stick to shows we've checked thoroughly, or even watch them separately first. I don't want you to feel this way every time we try to watch something." Our conversation that night was a mix of apologies and resolutions. We agreed that we needed to be more vigilant about the content we watched and to communicate more openly about our concerns. I promised to be more proactive in avoiding triggers, and she promised to try to communicate her needs more clearly. Despite our best intentions, the underlying issue remained. I could see that my wife was still struggling with her past trauma, and my attempts to avoid triggers were only addressing the symptoms, not the root cause. The incident with 3 body problems was a wake-up call that our current approach wasn't enough. We needed a more comprehensive solution. Over the next few days we tried to move past the incident, but the tension lingered. Watching TV, an activity that was supposed to be relaxing and enjoyable, now felt like a minefield. I found myself on edge, constantly scanning for potential triggers, while my wife remained anxious and wary. One evening I broached the subject of therapy. "I've been thinking," I began cautiously. "Maybe we should consider seeing a therapist. This isn't just about TV shows. It's about your past trauma, and I think professional help could make a big difference." My wife looked at me, her eyes searching mine. "You really think therapy would help?" she asked, her voice tinged with both hope and skepticism. "I do," I replied. "It's not just about avoiding triggers. It's about finding ways to heal and cope better. I want us to enjoy our time together without this constant fear." She nodded slowly, considering my words. "Okay," she said finally. "Let's try it. I don't want to keep living like this either." Avoiding shows with sexual content has significantly shaped our entertainment choices over the years. When we first started dating, we both enjoyed watching TV together as a way to unwind and spend quality time. However, as our relationship deepened and I learned more about my wife's past trauma, our viewing habits had to change. We became extremely selective about the shows we watched, prioritizing those that were unlikely to contain any scenes that could trigger her discomfort. This careful curation of our watch list means we often bypass some of the most popular and critically acclaimed shows. Series like Game of Thrones, Westworld, and even certain blockbuster movies are off the table. These shows, renowned for their intricate plots and rich character development, are also known for their explicit content. As a result, we stick to safer genres, comedies, dramas without mature themes, documentaries, and family-friendly animations. While I understand the necessity of these precautions, there are times when I feel a sense of loss. I see friends and colleagues discussing the latest twists in Game of Thrones, or the compelling narratives in shows like Westworld, and I can't help but feel left out. These shows have become cultural phenomena, and missing out on them feels like missing a part of the shared social experience. I sometimes wonder about the impact of these missed experiences on my own enjoyment and our shared interests. Although I'm not a huge TV consumer, I do appreciate well-crafted storytelling and engaging plots. It's hard not to feel a pang of regret when I hear about a particularly gripping series that I know we can't watch together. Even when I watch these shows alone, the experience feels incomplete without being able to share it with my wife. For my wife, the avoidance of such content is a necessary measure for her emotional well-being. Her past trauma from being sexually cheated on in a previous relationship has left deep scars. The infidelity involved her ex-partner and other physically attractive women, which led to a significant blow to her self-esteem. This betrayal has made her extremely sensitive to any depiction of attractive women or sexual content on screen. It's not just discomfort, these scenes trigger intense feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, and mistrust. She needs constant reassurance and security to feel safe and valued in our relationship. Whenever we encounter a scene with an attractive woman, she fears that I might find her less attractive in comparison. This fear is so profound that even brief glimpses of nudity or suggestive content can cause significant distress. She feels a need to protect herself from these triggers by avoiding any potential exposure altogether. From her perspective, the avoidance of such content is not just about controlling what we watch. It's about maintaining her sense of security and trust in our relationship. She worries that seeing these images might reignite her feelings of inadequacy and insecurity. This fear extends beyond just TV shows. It affects her daily life and interactions, making her feel vulnerable and constantly on edge. Our usual approach to selecting TV shows involves thorough research and pre-screening. We rely heavily on parental guides, reviews, and recommendations from trusted sources. This process is time-consuming but necessary to ensure we avoid any unexpected triggers. Despite our best efforts, there are times when something slips through, as it did with 3 body problems, leading to tension and conflict. The constant vigilance required to avoid these triggers has taken a toll on both of us. For me, it means being perpetually on guard, ready to switch off the TV at the slightest hint of inappropriate content. This constant state of alertness makes it hard to fully relax and enjoy our time together. For my wife, it means living with the ever-present anxiety that something might slip through and upset her. We've tried various strategies to manage this issue, including watching episodes separately before viewing them together and sticking to genres that are less likely to contain explicit content. While these measures have helped to some extent, they are not foolproof. The underlying issue remains, and it's clear that our current approach is not sustainable in the long run. Reflecting on these challenges, I realize that simply avoiding certain shows is not a viable long-term solution. It addresses the symptoms but not the root cause of the problem. My wife's need for reassurance and security is deeply tied to her past trauma, and avoiding triggers can only do so much. We need a more comprehensive approach that addresses her underlying anxieties and helps her heal from her past. Our decision to explore therapy was driven by the recognition that we needed professional help to navigate this complex issue. Therapy offers the hope of finding healthier ways to cope with her trauma and improving our communication and understanding. Through therapy, we aim to build a stronger foundation of trust and support, allowing us to enjoy our time together without the constant fear of triggering her discomfort. In the end, our journey towards resolving this issue is about more than just finding a way to watch TV together. It's about strengthening our relationship, supporting each other's emotional well-being, and creating a future where both of us can feel secure and valued. As we move forward, we remain committed to working through these challenges together, with the hope that we can find a path that honors both our needs and brings us closer as a couple. Our decision to seek therapy was a pivotal moment in our journey to address my wife's trauma and the impact it had on our relationship. After the intense discussion following the incident with 3 body problems, we both realized that our current strategies were not enough. Avoiding shows with sexual content was a temporary fix, but it didn't address the root of the problem. We needed professional help to navigate these deep-seated issues and find a sustainable way forward. The process of finding the right therapist was meticulous. We wanted someone who specialized in trauma and relationship counseling. After researching and reading reviews, we chose a therapist who came highly recommended for her compassionate approach and expertise in dealing with similar issues. Booking that first appointment filled us with both anxiety and hope, as we were stepping into uncharted territory. During our initial therapy session, we sat in the therapist's office, a cozy room designed to make clients feel at ease. The therapist introduced herself warmly and invited us to share our story. We took turns explaining the challenges we'd been facing. My wife detailed her past trauma and its lasting effects, while I described the tension it created in our relationship and my internal conflict about avoiding certain TV shows. The therapist listened attentively, her empathetic nods encouraging us to open up. She asked insightful questions, helping us articulate feelings that had been difficult to express. For my wife, it was a relief to have her trauma acknowledged and validated by a professional. The therapist explained that her reactions were normal for someone who had experienced such betrayal, and that our current situation was a common struggle for couples dealing with similar past wounds. In the following sessions, the therapist guided us through various exercises to better understand and manage the impact of my wife's trauma. One of the first techniques we learned was the use of a safe word. This word was a signal my wife could use whenever she felt uncomfortable or triggered by something on the screen. It allowed her to communicate her need to pause or stop the show without having to explain her feelings in the moment, reducing her anxiety and giving her a sense of control. We also explored grounding exercises that my wife could use when she felt overwhelmed. These techniques included deep breathing exercises, focusing on sensory details in the environment, and mindfulness practices. The goal was to help her stay present and calm, reducing the intensity of her reactions to triggers. Over time, she found these exercises helpful not just during TV watching but also in other areas of her life where anxiety surfaced. For me, the therapy sessions were enlightening. The therapist helped me understand the profound impact of my wife's trauma and why her reactions were so intense. She explained that my wife's need for reassurance was not about doubting my loyalty but about managing her own deep-seated fears and insecurities. This perspective shift allowed me to approach the situation with more empathy and patience. We also worked on improving our communication. The therapist emphasized the importance of open and honest conversations about our feelings and needs. She taught us techniques for active listening, where we would take turns speaking without interruption, ensuring that each of us felt heard and understood. These conversations were difficult at first, as they required us to be vulnerable and confront uncomfortable emotions, but they gradually became easier and more productive. Another significant aspect of our therapy was rebuilding trust. The therapist guided us through exercises designed to strengthen our emotional connection and trust in each other. One such exercise involved sharing positive affirmations daily, reminding each other of our love and commitment. This practice helped to reinforce the security in our relationship and provided my wife with the reassurance she needed. The therapist also encouraged us to redefine our entertainment choices together. Instead of focusing on what we couldn't watch, we began exploring new genres and shows that were safe and enjoyable for both of us. We discovered a shared love for mystery and adventure series, which provided excitement without the risk of triggering content. This shift in focus allowed us to reconnect and find joy in our shared viewing experiences. As we continued our therapeutic journey, we encountered setbacks. There were moments when old triggers resurfaced, causing tension and frustration. However, the tools and strategies we learned in therapy helped us navigate these challenges more effectively. We learned to approach setbacks with patience and understanding, viewing them as opportunities to grow and strengthen our relationship. One particularly impactful session involved revisiting the incident with 3 body problems. The therapist asked us to recount the event and our feelings surrounding it. This exercise allowed us to see the incident from each other's perspectives more clearly. My wife expressed how the scene had reignited her fears of inadequacy and betrayal, while I shared my feelings of guilt and helplessness. This mutual understanding helped us find common ground and reaffirm our commitment to supporting each other. Another key strategy we learned was setting boundaries around our TV watching. We established rules such as only watching new shows together when we had ample time to discuss any issues that arose and pre-screening potentially risky content using online guides. We also decided to limit our viewing sessions to specific times when we both felt relaxed and free from other stresses, ensuring that our shared time was as enjoyable as possible. Through therapy, we also explored the deeper implications of my wife's trauma on our daily lives. The therapist helped my wife work through her feelings of inadequacy, guiding her to rebuild her self-esteem and sense of self-worth. This process involved individual therapy sessions focused on her personal growth and healing, complementing our joint sessions. For me, therapy provided a space to address my feelings of loss and frustration. The therapist helped me understand that it was okay to feel deprived of certain experiences, and that these feelings didn't diminish my commitment to my wife. We worked on finding a balance where I could enjoy certain shows on my own while prioritizing our shared viewing experiences. This compromise allowed me to feel more fulfilled without compromising my wife's emotional well-being. As our therapy sessions progressed, we noticed significant improvements in our relationship. Our communication became more open and honest, and the tension around TV watching began to dissipate. My wife felt more secure and less anxious, and I felt more equipped to support her. We both gained a deeper understanding of each other's needs and how to navigate our challenges together. One of the most valuable outcomes of therapy was the realization that our relationship could grow stronger through adversity. By facing our issues head-on and seeking professional help, we were able to transform a source of conflict into an opportunity for growth and connection. Therapy taught us that it's possible to heal from past traumas and build a healthier, more resilient relationship. In conclusion, our therapeutic journey was a transformative experience that helped us address my wife's trauma and the impact it had on our relationship. Through professional guidance, we learned effective strategies to manage triggers, improve communication, and rebuild trust. While the road to healing was challenging, the progress we made was a testament to our commitment to each other. With the tools we gained from therapy, we are better equipped to face future challenges and continue building a strong, supportive partnership. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.